Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective of the world around me. And if you hear learning, thunder, lightning, it's raining, thunderstorms going on right now where I live, so keep that in mind. Alright, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker, I'm on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, just to name a few. And all the links to reach out to me will be provided for you, along with my Shopify link. Alright, so this episode is all about my thoughts on fan theories of movies from the 1990s. Let's get on into it. Alright, so I am going to get into thoughts and just give my point of view about the aspects of movies from the 1990s. Now, this is part of my generation when growing up. In the 90s, it was a wide range of landscapes of different films that were going on at that time. And it really set the marker with the landscape of what we're seeing today. And then specifically with the aspects of more when we get into the 90s here, you still have the aspects of coming of age, but it's in a different element of range of coming of age to where it's even more relatable to where, you could say, I can see that. I know a friend that was like that has that kind of disposition. And so, when we get into the aspects of different genres here of movies and Hollywood and so forth, the aspects of suspense is quite different too, to where it's more. Even action films are more from. It was very prevalent that, to me, I'm speaking from my terms here. It was more from a psychological point of view. So what I mean by this is, it's without getting really heavy-handed and talking, super early about, these different fan theories. The aspects of mental imbalance or the aspects of not being able to trust in what's assuming is normal and assuming that your life is the way that you think is well put together, there's no issues, when actuality there is. And then there were a lot of films that showcased that really well. And then I want to just break this movie down because it really gives the all-inclusive aspects of why the 1990s was so cutting edge and prevalent, and it keeps making its mark, and it keeps being so relatable to so many people, so many different generations, even though it wasn't long ago, in the grand scheme of things. But the way everything is showcased and written and thought about and executed, it's as if it's not. I mean, in the 80s, they did that, and they got that right with writing things that were relatable, that were real and concrete. But it was even more relatable in the 90s. And I think a prime example of that is Run, Lola, Run. Now, this film is a German film, but it got a lot of, not only international acclaim, it got a lot of acclaim in the U.S. And rightfully so, with the way that this movie not only merged art and the depth of the aspects of the culture, and making a reference to the landscape of pop culture, but also with the aspects of, it was a psychological thriller that was very prevalent and very relatable to a whole lot of people from this sense alone. So, beg the question, I asked the question. And I've said about, and I've talked about this film, before and other podcasts, but I keep referring back to this movie because it's really something when it's done well. The aspects of media, when we get in the sense of entertainment, can really break a lot of barriers in the more ways than one, and people can be, and it can be in a way to where it unites instead of divides, which should be the intention of entertainment in itself, to be something that is digestible to look at. And everybody has their own different agendas, and everybody has their own different points of views. That's all well and good. But for the most part, when you popcorn movies or other movies, you want that suspense of fantasy there, to that element. You're still looking for that element of relaxation in it, And so, Run, Lola, Run really, it got that really well. So it not only mixed the aspects of drama, action, and suspense well, it mixed the elements of understanding with the psychological aspects of understanding, which really drove it home. What would your life be if you took a different route? And that really gets people's attention, because so many people can relate to that aspects of, wow, man, if I would have just done this, what would my life have been right now? Those what if questions. And then while you're going through the movie, you can see all of these actions interfolding into themselves just because of something that was done or not done in the sequence of events. And that is something, the showcase of that is something that's not new, because especially in the aspects of German filmmaking, the aspects of going through that, when you get in the aspects of art films, or art, more avant-garde films of that nature. There's a lot of subject matter that talks about that, but again, it's all about the delivery here. The delivery is off, because not a lot of people have that disposition with cerebrally connecting to something, to all the time, the content, or something being just talking about something that's happened, but you don't actually see the events, or something like that, something that's a artistic bent to wholly rein in that it's about the merit of the art instead of the content of the subject matter here. Or in this case, the way the subject matter is presented. And see, when we get in the aspects of films from the 90s here, there were so many different realms of movies that extended that possibility of intrigue to where cliffhangers were really, really sustainable, or really prevalent in this era, to where you just don't really know what's going to happen next, and you don't really know who is what and what is where. And then I think that's in essence really what makes things good and what makes things prevalent, when, especially and when it's done well in the sense of entertainment, it captivates the audience to continue the dialogue on the situation about something. And the 90s was a really good landscape of that, because it was ever changing with so many things going on that was very prevalent to the disposition of the way people were living their lives at the time. You know, the way that the aspects of something as simple as cartoons. That's not simple. You know, when you get in the aspects of being mass appeal, or what's good or what's not to children, the aspects of the way things were presented for children were completely different. You know, getting the aspects of being entertained was completely different. Now, you know, you get the first generation that home computer, you know, towards the middle part of the 90s and so forth, and the ending part of the 90s, you know, that was prevalent for home computers to be a source of connecting to the world, to where, you know, it was relatable for that to be a part of the household. And we get, you know, and then more and more with the aspects of different divisions of cable networks. And people are becoming more and more connected in a global sense to each other. And so some would say, you know, that was the internet is the curse of what the landscape of today, of people being more the aspects of not being able to be more social and so forth. But I see it like this here. It's one of those things that it's, if you want to engage and you want to be, you know, prevalent in the aspects of being social with other people, it's going to happen. And it's just one of those things that some people are just not, you know, socially apt to do so, and they just, you know, find the means, and where they find the means, they use that on the internet. But on the other hand, when it's one of those things where you got to see it for what it is in the mainstream media, promoting and saying, oh, isn't it wonderful to be always connected on the internet? But at the same time, you know, you flip-flop and say that, oh, look at all of this division with people and all this aspects of all these cyberbullying and so forth. And then it's unfortunate that those things do happen, but most of the time, you know, people want to engage with other people. And then the ones that want to, you know, perpetually stay on the internet, they just perpetually stay on the internet and on their realm and on their own bubble. And it's one of those things that you got to see it for what it is. It's just like, again, what I stress, it's really important to pay attention to what is presented, what is said in mainstream media, because that sets up the landscape here and of what the general public or the general consciousness is thinking and feeling, and that leaks into, the aspects of the division or the unification of people and the culture. And that's something to think about and consider. Now, with all this said, I'm going to get into fan theories here about movies, popular movies from the 1990s. Here we go. Okay, and these sources will be provided for you in this episode. Alright, so number one, it says, and it's entitled 1990s movie. It's from Ranker, and it's about movies, 90s movies nostalgia, and it's entitled 90s movies fan theories. So number one, it says Sid from the original Toy Story grows up to be the garbage person in Toy Story 3. Hold on just a minute. Alright. So, it says Sid, Eric Von and Dinkin is a horrifying villain in the original Toy Story. But one fan theory, it positions that he turned over a new leaf. So according to Redditor, and with the tagline, London Garbage Man, Sid grows up to become the sanitary worker in Toy Story 3. This transition starts when Sid realizes his toys are alive, which horrifies him because he spent most of his childhood mutilating them. Sid takes it upon himself to make sure this never happens again. So he decides to rescue toys that people have thrown away to fix broken ones. This is why he becomes a sanitation worker, the one filled with access to the living beings, ergo broken toys people consider trash. If all that fails to back up to the theory, Sid and the man on the garbage truck wear the same t-shirt. So yeah, y'all. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and specifically when we get into the aspects of Pixar in the realm of the universe and the disposition of how things go. And yeah, I can see that going on with the aspects of you psychologically being tormented with something that you've done and making amends with that. And this is what I'm talking about, how in the 90s, they really did that well with harking in on the aspects of psychological well-being of characters and how that plays out with everything. Okay, Forrest Gump tells a story that relates to each person he speaks within the film. So it says, throughout Forrest Gump, it seems like the title character remains stuck in his own world. What if that wasn't the case? So Redditor, with the tagline, hero of OA believes Forrest, Tom Hanks, purposely tells a story that relates to each person he's talking with. And a decent amount of evidence exists to back this theory up. So, in the beginning, Forrest talks to a black waitress about how he was named after a KKK leader who made mistakes. He referenced segregation in his early years. After that, he chats with a woman who looks slightly older than Jenny. He tells her about Jenny's college dorm and about saving her from a strip club. Next, he moves on to an elderly man who probably is old enough to have served in Vietnam. He talks to him about combat and losing his best friend during the World War. Lastly, he speaks to a woman around the same age as his mom about how difficult it was when his mother died. She burst into tears. So if this is true, maybe Forrest was a far better storyteller than ever imagined. So, and I think, so here's the thing with this. So the Forrest Gump was actually based on a book, and I read the book, but I need to revisit and reread it again. You know, it's one of those things where you read it, but you got to read it again to really digest everything into your mind about what's going on in the story, you know. So, the main character, Forrest Gump, is So he has mental challenges. Okay, yes, he is. That's how it is, really in the story. But he's not somebody that's not unaware of everything. He's fully aware, and I think they didn't really get that quite correlate that well. And it's unfortunate because the author of the story here of with Forrest Gump, what the book is based on, he made that prevalent. Like y'all missed the point with this here, you missed the mark. But I think maybe a writer or the director or the way that they were trying to make that work to, and this fan theory hypes that up to where it's making it prevalent that Forrest Gump is not unaware of himself and his disposition with people. Even though he's mentally challenged, he's still, he still has. He's still not incompetent. It's a difference between mentally challenged and being incompetent and just perpetually being in that state of mind. And Forrest Gump is, the character is not that. So, yeah. All right, so the real world and the Matrix is still a computer simulation. So, the red pill or the blue pill, which is one you take. So red pill is where we get into the aspects of the society in which we live in now. When that gets bounced around a lot, the aspects of red pill and what does that actually come from? What does that actually mean? Here we go. Being aware of your situation and taking the blue pill, being okay with deception and just being in that state of mind. All right, so which one do you take? The Matrix and Matrix fan theory sort of proves that either it really matters because none allows access to the real world or the real world gained by the red pill escaping the program. It's just another level of the Matrix simulation. It's an illusion to make it seem like you can escape and that you possess the choice to do so. It's false free will, There's some proof the red pill may be a farce. So Neo, Keanu Reeves, uses powers when he supposedly is outside of the Matrix. This would be impossible in the real world. Additionally, Agent Smith, Hugo Weaving, can control Bane even after he leaves the simulation. How is that possible? Because he never actually left. So Dewey is a serial killer mastermind in Scream. At the end of Scream, we're told that two killers exist: Billy Loomis, Skeet Ulrich, and Matthew Lillard. A Reddit fan theory isn't buying the fact that they acted alone. According to user Xeon Home, Deputy Dewey, David Arquette, may be the real mastermind. Dewey remains highly suspicious. He's seemingly always around and has been close to the killer without ever really getting attacked. The only time he gets assaulted are when he's in view of another character conveniently covering his tracks. Yet somehow he's always absent during the showdown. Lots of evidence exists for a third killer. In the original film, which may be Dewey. When Casey finds Steve and tie her to a chair, he looks to his left and right, indicating Billy and Stuart are hiding on both sides of the house. So who rings the doorbell? Also, who stalks Sydney while both killers are present in the video store with Randy? All right, so the sales insurance man in Groundhog Day is actually the devil. So Groundhog Day is brilliant, yet it is as brilliant as it is frustrating. So waking up to the same day over and over again is hard to do. But maybe that's the point. in the essence that he's reliving everything because he's in actuality in hell. So perhaps the repeated time loop was Phil Connor's, Bill Murray's personal hell, and then Ryerson, Stephen Tobolowsky, the insurance salesman, was actually the devil. So a fan theory by Redditor Superconductive Rabbi alleges that Ned is the devil and has it out for Phil. Firstly, Phil and Ned don't really get along. So the moment after Phil first encounters and insults Ned, he immediately steps into a puddle. Ned laughs and shoos off a snide remark, almost like he was responsible. On the last day of the time loop, Phil finally purchases an insurance policy from Ned. And, it's literally like he's signing his life or giving his life to the devil. So Ned, and then he's mysteriously free. The theory also noticed one parallel. Buying a ton of life insurance is as close as you can get to selling your soul. So the devil would certainly approve. Alright, so the hero of The Fifth Element is much older than he looks. When a future cop asks Corbin Dallas, which is Bruce Willis, if he's classified as human, the Willis while cab driver replies, negative. I am meat popsicle. It sounds like a sarcastic answer with actuality. It was delivered by Willis, who can always be counted upon to land one-liners. If he was answering honestly, though, Dallas might be a whole lot older than his appearance suggests. The implication of meat popsicle may be that Dallas has spent time being frozen. The character has a lengthy military history, that is. So, the tagline from this person from Reddit, I believe, so you victoriously fills in some gaps, asserting that Dallas was awake for deployment but was frozen when in transmission across vast interstellar distances, or even simply being a military agent. Alright, so going on to The Sixth Sense. And The Sixth Sense was one of those prevalent movies from M. Night Shyamalan's aspects of intrigue of filmmaking. Alright, so it says, Anna can also see dead people in The Sixth Sense. It says, Cole, which is Haley Joel Osment, isn't the only one who can see dead people in The Sixth Sense. So according to Reddit fan theory by Stolerback 95, Anna Olivia Williams might have the gift as well. Anna experiences a cold chill when spirits are around too. And in the beginning of the scene, she freezes like she notices something apparent. So the theory states that Anna can see Malcolm, which is Bruce Willis, the whole time, but knows he's gone. She ignores him, hoping it would prevent her from hurting more. So she's already on Zoloft while trying to cope with the loss of stress. Anna does acknowledge Malcolm once in the film. While she's in the restaurant on the anniversary, she looks directly at him and speaks, but the movie leads us to believe that she's just talking to herself. Alright, so the T-100 evolves emotionally in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. With the Tango time travel mythology, the Terminator franchise has inspired plenty of convoluted fan theories. But this time, this one is quite simply put. So the T-100, Robert Patrick, develops desires and emotions of its own, and despite being designed specifically to terminate with a minimum of fuss and no feelings at all, he has that. So, this is insinuating that he has feelings and emotion, this theory. So that's exactly how the T-1000 operates early in Terminator 2. So efficiently killing anyone and everyone who represents even a minor obstacle or opportunity on his quest, including police officers. I guess it's supposed to be T-1000 instead of T-100. It's slowly running his fingers through a guard's eye. This sadistic streak is fully in evidence during T-12's climax as the liquid metal villain tortures Sarah, as points out. And the shape-shifting robot could easily have personified Sarah to accomplish his goal, yet instead chooses a crueler, less effective route, presumably just taking pleasure in her pain. See, in that case, instead of, would you think, being empathetic, when not actuality, using it, for your own personal gain to destroy something in a more psychological bent. See, again, with the aspects of really getting that well in films, going on this psychological mentality of humanity. So, in The Big Lebowski, Donnie is a figment of Walter's imagination. So, one Reddit fan suggests this: The Big Lebowski remains so popular that the Coen brothers actually address it. Though it's tough to know where the theory originated, Redditor U Conservator Valchek outlines the popular discourse. So, according to the theory, Donnie Steve Buscemi only exists in Walter John Goodman's head. The dude, Jeff Bridges, hardly interacts with Donnie during the film, and it exists. Walter is remembering. So again, Walter is served in Vietnam, and so he's having that internal struggle here. Walter is remembering a friend who died in the Vietnam War. To take things further, one Redditor claims Donnie might have existed at one point. He really was a friend of Walter's that died in Vietnam. Walter was able to make some of his ashes, and the dude felt bad enough to indulge him. Walter was able to take some of his ashes, and so the dude indulged him. Most of us probably just thought that the dude was being the dude when he spoke about Donnie, but Steve Buscemi also brought it into theory. The actor admitted that Donnie was a figment of Walter's imagination during a Big Lebowski reunion. But John Goodman told him to shut up, naturally. So, and then it's unfortunate with the aspects of how great especially with the landscape of everything that with John Goodman that has contributed to entertainment throughout the years, and the aspects of bringing light of the merit and the worth of the middle class and so forth. And it's unfortunate the way things turned out with the Connors and Roseanne and everything, but it's one of those things that things reveal themselves the way they is, and the way they are, and the way it is, and everything works out the way it works out. And then you see that Roseanne is getting the last laugh here, and which is really something, because she's a comedian, and how that franchise, or how that staple in American popular culture of history isn't anywhere near what it was when she was a part of it. So there's something to say about that. So Marla Singer does not exist in Fight Club, and that the book is really it's really something else, the way it's written in a honest way, but it has the brutality of the aspects of violence and the disposition of that towards men and how their placement in society. But it's a really good read. Anyhow, so the first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. So the first twist of Fight Club is that Tyler, Brad Pitt, is a figment of the narrator Edward Norton's imagination. So, fan theory by Redditor Jewish Gun proposes that also Marla Singer is a manifestation of guilt, as the narrator says. Her lie reflects my lie, and suddenly I felt nothing. I couldn't cry, so once again I couldn't sleep. She is the one person in the film capable of making the narrator's life better. She has feelings and can be heard. She is guilty. Is the narrator really talking to himself or talking to himself the entire time? More evident lies in the fact that hardly anyone addresses Marla throughout the film. Aside from minor characters like the waiter in the restaurant, no one really is an interaction of her. So this also goes on with the aspects of, there's other theories that Marla represents the feminine side of the feminine mystique of the male characters in this position of playing the part of that she embodies the aspects of being understanding and being the best way I can describe it is being comfortable with not putting on airs or being, male bravado. That there's a lot of respect for men who know how to be, gentle and understanding but strong at the same time, and in essence merging those two together and for it to manifest itself into a woman in itself. And it's one of those, again, psychological aspects of coming to terms with that, of the softer side of you as a man, and then combating what is actually viewed to be your displacement of being a man in society, and working those things out for yourself and considering what kind of man you want to be in itself. So this has nothing to do with the aspects of, being all this agenda that's being pushed out of being, a different sex or something. I just think it's a manifestation of dealing with and your placement of, being okay with being a gentle person or a gentle man, or and then breaking through all of that. All right, so the briefcase of Pulp Fiction is God. And so there's some fan theory that says that it's Marcellus' soul in that briefcase. So Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction won a global Golden Globe, an Academy Award, and 2 BAFTA awards. Wow, that's a lot to say. And the movie is impressive too. Most of the stuff, Quentin Tarantino's films are impressive. And 2 MTV Movie Awards. This much talked about movie left a lot of things up for debate, like what the heck was Marcel Wallace's Ben Rames briefcase. A fan theory by Redditor Citizen 386 suggests that perhaps the briefcase is God. So according to the theory, Vincent John Travolta only has bad things happen to him when he isn't in the presence of the briefcase. Still, he views the contents but never accepts them. And those who deny God usually suffer consequences. So the theory also states that Jules, Samuel L. Jackson, is actually maybe the true shepherd because he never looks into the briefcase, but unconditionally accepts the contents. So he refuses to give up the briefcase once he takes possession. And Jules walks away at the end unscathed after he shows its contents to the robbers in the diner. Citizen 386 states that the actor claimed in various interviews that Tarantino told them the briefcase contained whatever they wanted it to hold. It's common for people to say God is whatever you want it to be because he's everywhere, so this theory is no square or rectangle. So Jack from Titanic is a traveler. Titanic is one of the greatest love stories of all time, but Jack, Leonardo DiCaprio, may not be the romantic pauper portrayed throughout the film. So according to a Facebook fan theory, Jack is actually a time traveler who only comes to the ship to save Rose from committing suicide. Jurassic Park never had any dinosaur DNA. Jurassic Park was undeniably filled with fantastical science. Remember how the entirety of the theme park rested on the DNA found inside of the belly of the mosquitoes that got trapped in the amber for millions of years. While widely old amber with bits of bugs or feathers in it does not exist in the real world. The old DNA could be of no use. It would be degraded, so much of it, if anything, could be extracted. So the mosquito's DNA would have wholly mixed with the dinosaur's DNA. So according to a fan theory by Redditor Browner04, that's exactly why Jurassic Park never had any dinosaur DNA. Instead, the entire park is a lie. It's a front to get John Hammond, Richard Attenborough, a massive amounts of funding and cover up the fact that InGen is doing some pretty gnarly genetic experimentation. So the dinosaurs are lab creatures by genetically modified reptiles, birds, and amphibians to suit what the public thinks a dinosaur should look like. If they were created from actual dinosaur DNA, that wouldn't be the case. Also, Hammond describes his past, having first delved into entertaining by creating a circus, and this would be a case in point for that. Aladdin takes place in a post-apocalyptic future. So, there's a fan theory that says that in actuality, it's what the times in which they're living is of the future, not the past. And that's quite interesting. To be exact, says it's 10,000 years into the future. So, Andy Dreyfus is guilty in the Shawshank Redemption. So, forgive me for the pronunciation of his name. So, the Shawshank Redemption is on the assumption that Andy Tim Robbins is innocent, as he claims he did not kill his wife, the golf instructor, with whom she was having an affair with. And Andy is supremely reasonable and controlled man. After all, a man with vast wellsprings of wisdom, hope, and compassion, all of which helped him through his years in this prison. But what if that was all an illusion, an elaborate smoking screen, and Andy was actually guilty of killing these two people? That's the premise with this former Redditor, which begins, and the whole theory suggests that Andy is not only a murderer, but a horrifyingly calculating and manipulative mastermind, artfully and meticulously positioning everyone around him to facilitate his eventual escape from prison. Clueless did have a sequel. In this case, the sequel is Legally Blonde, which I think that's kind of far-fetched, but okay. So Cher Alyssa Silverstone is 16-year-old sophomore Clueless, which came out in 1995. It's proposed that she graduated in 1997 and went on to college in 2001. This is the same year Ellie Woods, Reese Witherspoon graduates from the university in Legally Blonde universe. So Cher doesn't just look like Ellie Woods. They also share the same interests. Cher slays and debate classes. This slay term here that they're saying. Excuse me. And the jargon is something else here when it all goes throughout time. So she's winning in debate classes. Her father is a lawyer, and she frequently helps him with his cases. And you can't deny her unique taste in fashion. Alright, going on to Home Alone. So Kevin is actually the killer in Saw. And this has been surfacing a lot on the internet here. So when Kevin is forgotten at home, he crafts insane, needlessly harmful traps to purposely injure people. And so in the aspects of being exposed to this in turn moves on to the mentality of Jigsaw. So in both Home Alone 2 and the original, Kevin uses recordings to play around with people's emotions. Whether it's the pizza guy he scares away with a TV film, or the hotel staff he torments with recordings of his uncle. Jigsaw also uses recordings in his murderous games. It's safe to say that Kevin could have started off small, only to grow up to become a full-fledged criminal mastermind. And so there's also a fan theory that, as I said before, and y'all should, go back and resurface that, about my fan theories that I've laid out. But anyhow, for a recap of that, specifically talking about Home Alone, that actually is a coup, and his parents are not really his parents. They're actually covert operators of the government, and they're setting them up to get into the aspects of being a part of government operations and being a mastermind of that. Alright, Somerset is the real killer in 7. So what's in the box? Apparently not Gwyneth Paltrow's head. That's a rough film there. What's in the box is in 7, which could be the key of the real killer. So might not be John Doe, which is Kevin Spacey, like we're led to believe. One fan theory via Redditor says that it holds the Somerset's Morgan Freeman's that Somerset Morgan Freeman was the real killer. Somerset has a ton of detective experience, and making it likely he could have led the investigation apart. And Somerset has an array of Christmas trees, air fresheners on his desk, and it's supposed to be another clue. Alright, so moving on to the last two. It says Benny purposely lost the ball in Sandlot. That was a really good coming of age film. Throughout the Sandlot, Benny, the Jet Rodriguez, Mike Vitar, seems like a nice kid. The sort of kid who goes out of his way to help his friends or help others, not just, like I'm saying, not just his friends, help others. And in this case, they say, and with the source that I'm reading from, his neighbors and so forth, and newbies. There's a chance, however, that this nice kid isn't actually motivated by kindness, but by something else, an egomania. So it says that this conclusion can be reached by PMM your Panins, whatever this is, who put forth the idea that Benny orchestrated the movie's primary drama to cement his status as a local legend. The theory is built on the idea that Benny had an opportunity to see that the ball Scotty Smiles, Tom Gurray, stole from his stepfather was signed by Babe Ruth. But the autographed ball and that played this let me say that again. But the autograph ball in play despite that. Knowing Kenny, Brandon Quentin Adams, had been hitting home runs all summer, Benny was counting on the ball at the end. Mr. Myrtle's backyard and when it gets into Mr. Myrtle's backyard, forcing a conversation with Myrtle's dog, the infamous Beast. By forcing a confrontation and besting the Beast, which he ultimately does thanks to his own pluck and PF Flyers. Benny aims to let the whole town know he's the fastest, bravest kid around. So the final one. Jeff Daniels plays the same guy in Speed and in Dumb and Dumber. So it's suggesting that these are both covers. So, and which makes a lot of sense, when we get in the aspects of that he was tracking, Jim Carrey's character, he was just tracking him for a police investigation because for some reason before then on the inside to get to something, and then how it would make a whole lot of sense of why people were tracking him, and then on the surface it seems like the police they were investigating him or tracking him because of how they were tied to the untimely death of the hitman, but it might be more than what it seems. So let's get into this. It's very interesting. So what if the protagonists of Dumb and Dumber weren't always a little show? Well, what if one of them wasn't always slow? That's the idea behind a bit of theorizing from Shampoo 69. No. What a tagline. Okay. So, who gives the theory that Dumb and Dumber takes place in the same universe as Speed, and the action film that hit theaters just a few months before the comedy in 1994. So Jeff Daniels stars in Dumb and Dumber as Harry Dunn, of course, but he also plays a supporting role in Speed as Harry Temple, an LAPD cop who is killed in an explosive trap. According to the theory, though, Temple wasn't killed, but instead suffered brain damage, leading him to quit the force, moving to Rhode Island, and he met up with his old friend Lord Christmas, which is Jim Carrey, to live out his life as an impeccable dog groomer. So the 2003 prequel, that is Dumb and Dumber, When Harry Met Lloyd, presents a complication explaining away the notion that Harry is a schizophrenic, but isn't easier to simply pretend Dumb and Dumber never happened. Alright, that's quite interesting with the aspects of everything. And I'd like to know what you all think. Feel free to reach out to me. So this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. Bye-bye for now.